So, thank you. We have a quorum. We'd like to call to order the meeting of the MWPA Executive Committee of February 2nd, 2023. Could you do the roll, please, Martina?
Certainly. Director Goins is absent just now, but he will be joining us a little bit later. And Director Kohler, who is filling in for Director Hilliard.
Here.
Director Kurtz.
Here.
Director McMillan.
Here.
And President Rodoni.
Present. Thank you. Anyone want to adjust the agenda today? Yes, Barbara.
I just learned about this meeting a couple of days ago, and I have a doctor's appointment. I need to leave at 11. So I was wondering if perhaps we could do the discussion items first, because I would like to hear those if at all possible.
Sure. Sure. You have an hour only.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do a couple of the earlier items, then we'll move that ahead so we make sure we have plenty of time.
Thank you.
Hoping Bruce would be here for that too. So, all right. So let's move on to item 4, open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of this committee. Please be advised that pursuant to the government code section, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. A reminder, please silence your phones and mute your microphone when not reporting out. Martina, do we have anyone who wants to address the executive committee on items not on the agenda today?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current item of the agenda, open time for public expression, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And so it does look like we have a comment from a Stephen Keys. Stephen, you should be able to deliver your comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay. I've been meaning to make this comment for a while. I've been really impressed with Mark and his team about how well they research all of the issues involved, how well they manage in many, many things going on. I think you guys are doing a great job, but I specifically want to acknowledge Mark and his whole team for all of the great work you're doing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate the comments. Anyone else, Martina?
If there are any additional members of the public wishing to speak on the current item, open time for public expression, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And sir, we do not have any additional comments.
Very good. Thank you. So we can move on to item 5, the executive officer's report. Mark Brown.
Yes, and in respect for making this, getting us to the discussion items quick enough so that Director Kohler can attend, I will be very, very brief, I promise. Go to my screen share. And so everybody's already asking, what does all this rain mean? There's been articles in the newspaper, some people saying it's going to be the worst fire season ever. Some people saying we are set up for a quiet fire season. And what I always say is ask me in November and I'll let you know how the fire season went. I did pull up what our rain totals are predicted to be for the next few months. And basically we're supposed to have normal rainfall, which would be absolutely wonderful if that's the case. But then California dries up every year. So we do have a strategic ad hoc subcommittee of the board established to work with staff on our metrics and what our measures of success will be. We set up 2 meetings, one for February 10th, a 3-hour workshop, and one for March 10th, a 2-hour workshop. I know you all know this because you've been getting pinged by your clerks as well, but just a reminder of Form 700 coming up. Our senior low-income tax exemption went live on the website yesterday or last night. We'll be working with our typical partners to help get that word out. Exciting news. We launched our request for vendors to become part of our vendor/contractor list yesterday, and we already have 2 contractors that have already asked to be on our list. We've sent that out far and wide, and this was going to streamline administratively our work. We're going to be able to get contractors on the ground quicker, and it's also going to support our member agencies that will be able to pay the contractors direct rather than some of the reimbursement processes we've been following. A big shout out for Ann, Martina, and Megan for all the work that they did to get this going. And I specifically want to point out Martina because she made an awesome online form for folks to be able to fill it out rather than having to download, fill it out, scan, email back, so on and so forth. So thank you. It's awesome. She asked us to go in and demo it to make sure it was working before we made it live. And so far, no glitches. And then my continued update for the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They did receive our 4 beta test homes, and they're analyzing the data now, and we'll meet with them sometime next week to see how we can tune up the process. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions now for Mark? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll go to the public, Martina.
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the executive officer's report, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute yourself. And sir, there don't appear to be any hands for comment.
All right, bringing you back to the committee for any further discussion. No motion is required or action needs to be taken.
Just a quick one.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Mark, maybe are you going to send out to the members something on the senior exemption, the link or something with a little write-up so that we can put them in our newsletters?
Absolutely. We'll make it part of the executive officer report that I do after each board member or after each board meeting, and we'll have a blurb that everyone can use.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on to item 6, which should be quick. Consent calendar. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendars prior to the committee's action. The committee may approve the entire consent calendar with one action or any alternative. Remove items for discussion by the committee recommended by the staff or any committee member. I'll now take my public comment on the consent calendar.
If there are any members of the public wishing to comment on the consent calendar, please raise your hand in the reaction. And for those joining us by phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute yourself. And sir, there are no hands for comment.
All right, so there's only one item on the consent calendar. Any comments on that by committee members or a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Kearse, second by McMillan. We do a roll call, please.
Certainly, Director Goins, Director Kohler,
Aye.
Director Kurtz,
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Aye.
President Rodoni,
Aye.
and that looks like a unanimous vote of all in attendance. Sorry, sir.
Move to item 8, the discussion items, to make sure we have time to discuss these. Item 8A is remote participation in legislative body meetings after February 28th, 2023. Mark, you want to present this item?
Yeah, I'll kick this off and then I'll lean on Megan for any support. And what I want to mention is that just like what you just said, President Rodoni, is that after February 28th, the emergency declaration expires. Therefore, AB 361 is no longer valid. That leaves us with traditional Brown Act meeting regulations / teleconference regulations, and then AB 2449. And what I think I'll emphasize now and also emphasize as we talk about this is that it's not an either or decision. They can be used in together, but if you use them together, there's some nuances that we have to be careful that we follow. I am going to put up the table that Megan prepared after thanks to Novato Fire also for starting this table, and then Megan took it and added to that. So for traditional Brown Act teleconference rules at no expiration, And then the quorum must be from locations within the MWPA boundaries. We do need to list each location on our agenda, and then the agenda would be posted at each of those locations. The important thing to consider about those locations is that members of the public must be able to attend at that remote location, and then be able to have those members who attend to be able to address the full body. Votes would need to be by roll call if there's remote attendance. And then there's no limits to people using remote attendance. They can do it for any reason. But the key for that one is that if we are following traditional Brown Act rules, if we have a lot of people participating via remote, we have to make sure that we have a quorum within the boundaries of the MWPA. Assembly Bill 2449 does have an expiration of January 1st, 2026. And if any aspect of Assembly Bill 2449 is used, then that means we must have a quorum in person at the board chambers here at the MWPA offices. The agenda needs to list the location, which we always will anyway. And then it'll also need to list the remote meeting link, which we are always going to do. One of the things that MWPA has committed to is continuing remote access to all of our meetings for the public. We won't ever discontinue that aspect of it. We feel that that's just too important for the inclusiveness of our members of the public. Again, public access. This is where this can cause a little bit of issues if we have some board members that are using traditional Brown Act rules and meeting remotely, and then we have one or two people use their just cause reasons or emergency cause reasons to attend remotely. Then that means we have to have a quorum here at the office, at the board chambers. For our committees that are 17 members, that may be a little bit easier to make sure that we will have a quorum. It's our smaller committees that this could come in, and the executive committee being an example. If we have two members that are meeting remotely through the traditional Brown Act, and then one member wants to attend using 2449, then we'll have to do some legwork to make sure that we get a third person here at the chambers. So you can understand some of the logistics behind the scenes. Just cause would be childcare, contagious illness, so on and so forth. I won't read this to you. The key is that a member may only utilize this twice a year, and that would be something that we'll track behind the scenes. And then they must provide a general description of the circumstance related to their need to appear remotely. And in the emergency circumstances, physical, family, medical emergency, again, I won't read this all to you, but the key for this is 3 consecutive months or 20% of the meetings. That is the limit. And then what I forgot to mention yesterday, and Megan helped me remember, was if you do have someone attending with you that's greater than 18 years of age or 18 years or older, then you would need to announce that. So basically, so the other members and the public would know that someone else is attending the meeting remotely. I'm going to stop my screen share and just mention that we've had the discussion with the Advisory Technical Committee and the Operations Committee. They have a strong desire to continue to have the ability to attend remotely. Staff supports this. We understand it'll be increased work, but we're talking 5 or 6 meetings a year with those groups. These are bodies that already have professional working relationships. They know each other. They work with each other on a daily basis almost already. We also think that it would limit the amount of attendance or the attendance level that we have at these meetings because they're busy people driving from West Marin. So as an example, would be difficult for them. So we do recommend that they have the ability to follow the traditional Brown Act rules. However, for our board, but this is completely up to you guys' call, but we do recommend in-person meetings for the board because while some of you have great professional working relationships with each other, there's some of our smaller districts don't have that same opportunity to work with the council members So that's why, and for relationship building, we think it's a good idea for the board and its subcommittees to meet in person. And with that, I'll ask Megan to fill in any gaps or correct me where I was wrong.
No, I think that you covered it. All this practice is working out.
I've got one more. I got two more to give, ops and COC. So.
Okay, thanks. Questions, Julie?
The table is great. Thank you, Megan. It's really, really helpful. So I just want to clarify that if someone is seeking to participate remotely under the traditional Brown Act, they need to let Martina know about a week before the meeting in order to have it posted on the agenda.
Exactly. Yes.
We may want to add that to the tables before the board meeting so that everyone is aware of that. That's, there's no spontaneous remote participation.
That's a great point. Thank you. I emphasized that with ATC, forgot to do it today. It's early notification, frequent notification if there's going to be remote attendance.
Yeah, Rachel?
I was going to ask the same thing. I mean, I think we really need to encourage in person. And then it's the exception to not be in person.
Yeah.
And make sure it fits and so I think we need to present it that way. For those committees that are going to be continuing to do remote, then maybe the culture there and the protocol there is we're remote unless there's a need to be in person. And so I think we just need to set it that way.
Thank you, Rachel. Barbara?
Yeah, so for those folks, for example, for the ATC, you're going to have something like, I don't know how many voting members there are, 8 or 10, 17.
17.
Like that. You're going to have 17 addresses posted on the agenda. And I hope they realize that they have to let people in and they need to post it at the location 72 hours in advance. So, and for any board member who wants to follow the traditional rules, you have to let people in your house if you're in your house or your office. So it may be, as Julie recommended, adding something to the table. You might want to add that as well, because some people may not want to do that.
Yeah, maybe we want to say, you should take the meeting at your council location or your public agency. I don't think we want people going to people's houses.
And for ATC and ops, that would be their target would be their professional offices for sure.
Yeah, but for the board members, I think we should encourage them to participate if they want to participate remotely, but from a public location.
Yeah, that sounds good, Julie. I think we should probably recommend that at least. And have them understand that if they have it elsewhere, they have to allow people to access them. So, great. I had just a quick question. Did I read on 2449 that you aren't allowed to access the meeting by phone?
Exactly. You have to have audio visual with that. So more like a hybrid or Zoom capability so they can see and hear you. With the traditional teleconference, you can still do that just by phone.
Very good. Thank you.
One more comment on this. I mean, how about international accessing internationally? Is there any distinction?
No, with traditional, there is no distinction. And I suppose with AB 2449, there isn't either, as long as you have one of your Just Cause, if you're there on a conference for MWPA or San Rafael business, then it would be allowable under that as well. But it still does require that you post the agenda in advance. So if you're traveling, you would need to have the address of the place that you're staying so that could be included in the agenda. So you'd need that a week before the meeting, and then also make that space available to anyone interested in attending from that international location.
And I would hope that it's one thing if somebody's traveling internationally on business, such as Dennis might have that opportunity. But I hope that people will not be on a vacation and do that. That will politically be very bad for us to start seeing those kind of things like Oaxaca, Mexico, whatever hotel. I mean, you know, we really need to dissuade that. People need to try to participate in person.
Yeah.
Unless there's something really unusual.
Yeah, and the great part about a large board, people can miss meetings and you still don't have risk of quorum, so, which is good. Smaller boards have some challenges sometimes, but larger boards have more flexibility, so I agree with you, Barbara. So anything else? Any other questions? All right, can we go to the public on this one?
Certainly, if there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item returning to in-person meetings, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And so there are no hands for comment.
Thank you. Let's bring it back to the committee for any further discussion. There's no action required. This is just a recommendation. Julie?
Just a question on, I assume this is going to be on the board meeting. I would want to have a little bit of a discussion with the entire board about this, so I don't think it should be on the consent.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah. Chance for them to ask questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's move on to B, rental space for defensible space inspector consortium.
Yeah, so this is an interesting item, and I'm going to actually back up quite a bit in how D-space inspections are being done within the MWPA. The original thought when the MWPA was just being drafted and before the election ever happened was that the MWPA would be the primary employer for defensible space evaluators. And then as the language matured, there became the opportunity to opt out of the MWPA providing the inspectors and the D-space money being a pass-through. However, when we passed a measure, when we formed the MWPA obviously was not in a position to employ these space evaluators. So it became the standard that this is a pass-through. Each agency technically tells us that, yes, we want to be doing inspections on our own. Therefore, this is going to be a pass-through. From the beginning, it's been the Ross Valley agencies, the West Marin agencies, with the addition of Muir Beach, that have joined into a consortium. Most of the employees are employed by Marin County Fire. However, the D-space lead is employed by Ross Valley Fire. They've been cooperating and having the same pool of inspectors doing the inspections across all of those jurisdictions areas. They've been somewhat of nomads as far as when it comes to office space. When COVID had College of Marin shut down, they were able to have free classroom space there, and they used that as an office. They've been at the Acorn building across the street from Station 19 in San Anselmo, which is far too small and not the best of environments for them to work from. And they've been also working from the golf course in San Geronimo again, but it's not quite central to where their work is, and they have quite a footprint. So there's an impact of that footprint. Good news is that contrary to what I listed in the staff report, not listing Southern Marin Fire and Mill Valley Fire as part of the consortium, they've been added to the consortium and joined to the consortium. So 14 out of our 17 member agencies will be part of that consortium. And they do need office space for any one agency to bring on 25 to 30 people in their space is rather difficult. So quite technically, the decision to get office space resides with the consortium. And the only real board action is for us to be listed as the lessee instead of one of the consortium agencies or all of the agencies being listed as the lessee. When they started exploring the space at the Commons and found a really good spot and started discussing it amongst the fire chiefs were like, well, the MWPA is supposed to be set up to help us streamline our work, become more efficient. And it makes more sense if the MWPA is the lessee And then we deduct the amount of the rent, the insurance for the location, and then just tack on a 10% admin fee for our the efforts that we put forth. And then we deduct that from their D-space payments that we give them annually, prorated to their population. It's easy to say that, harder to visualize that. So I do have a table to help us with that. So here we have the table, and I rounded up the numbers a little bit just for the sake of, we don't have all of the firm numbers yet. We have the same cost per square footage that's been offered for Suite 275, which is one floor down from us and down on the southern end of this building. So the same rate, to say it would be identical contract as what the MWPA has for our board chambers. And then we have made an estimate, and I estimated high for what the insurance costs would be. And so we are estimating just about $4,000 a month for that space. That's inclusive of the admin fee. And then if in this first column, you see what the percentage of population for these member agencies are for the entire JPA. But then the next column is what their percentage of population is for the consortium. And then what their cost per month for that, their portion of the cost per month, what the cost per year, and then over at the end, you see that it ends up being 2.33% of each member agency's D-space allocation. And I just want to make sure that I covered all the items that I had here. And basically this, though, is just streamlining the process for our member agencies. If we didn't do this, the other options are one member agency becomes the lessee, and then all the member agencies would receive their full D-space allocation, and then the lessee would invoice all of the member agencies for that amount. And the other option is all 14 member agencies become co-lessees on the. So we feel that this is a much more streamlined approach. And I'll take any questions.
Great, thanks, Mark, and welcome, Bruce. We're on item 8.
Hey, thank you.
Rachel, go ahead.
Mark, can you talk to why, like, Novato and San Rafael, are there any downsides on not being part of the consortium? I know we're just talking about the space piece, but if there's what's happening in the consortium where, I don't know, yeah, I'll just think about that.
Go, Mark.
So,
Speak for Novato.
yeah, Bruce could definitely speak for Novato, but
No, you speak.
but the the larger agencies have more bandwidth within their organization to perform the tasks related to defensible space evaluations. And as we've mentioned several times, is the actual jurisdictional authority resides with the member agency for code enforcement. And so while we set the general direction and the goals, different communities and different fire departments have different relationships with their communities, and those agencies have opted to perform the evaluations and inspections themselves. The good news is that we're all on the DSI app now. So we're all pushing out and receiving the same data that we can qualify that with. There's minor nuances between how member agencies are doing it outside of the consortium. And this is actually an opportunity to compare these slight differences through data and find out which system is working better. And it allows us all to improve. So I'm not sure if San Rafael Fire or Novato Fire will ever come on board, but I'm not sure it's a bad thing that they stay separate as well.
Okay. I mean, as far as the space goes, it seems like a small amount of space, and makes sense to have a central location for the group. And this is a 1 year, it's a rolling 1 year?
No, I haven't seen the actual contract yet. We will have it for our board meeting in February, but we would make it a 3-year lease. We're targeting a 3-year lease. Okay.
And do they get together as a group? Is that what is the space, the need for the space?
So every morning, the D-Space for the consortium, they get together as a group, they map out their day, they have their assigned areas, they go out perform their inspections, and then they reconvene and have a closeout for the day and make sure that the data is all uploaded for if they're working in an area that doesn't have cellular coverage. This iPad stores the data, and then once they connect, it uploads, but it allows them to have that closeout.
Great. Thank you.
Barbara?
Yeah, you mentioned 14 of the 17 members are joining the consortium. Who's the other one? It's not Ian.
Marinwood and San Rafael, which everyone considers as one agency, since San Rafael
Okay.
likes to manage.
I know that story. Okay, thank you. It would seem good if everybody could partner in the consortium, but I guess everybody has to make their own way.
Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, I assume all the agencies are very supportive of this, Mark, correct?
Yes,
Great,
they're the
thanks.
ones that came to us to ask for it.
Wonderful.
Any other questions of Mark? All right, let's go to the public. Martina, please.
Martina is having some connectivity issues, so I'll take over that aspect of it. If any members of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand in reactions or press *9. And I do not see anyone wishing to comment.
All right, bring me back to the committee for further discussion and feedback to staff. No motion is required.
I'll just say this seems like a total no-brainer to me, so.
And
You can include that in your staff report, Mark.
Brainer.
This is what the MWPA was designed to do, was to create efficiencies for our member agencies to accomplish their mission.
And I
Yeah.
appreciate the 10% administrative cost, because I think we need to be mindful that we need to be cost neutral on these sorts of choices. So,
Exactly, and it ends up being like $134 a month or something like that. So
thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 8C, potential reduction in number of executive committee meeting and board meetings.
yes, as we've matured and we're slowly transitioning into a stable organization rather than a growing organization, although we still have a lot of growing to do, but we are slowing down in our growth. There's been feedback from several board members with the idea of reducing the number of times that we meet, being respectful of all of our time. We have 2.5 years worth of experience to see the ebbs and flows of the MWPA. I don't think that we can get into a regular pattern of like every other meeting or every third meeting. I think it has to do with the ebbs and flows. And when I looked at our workloads at our meetings, it seems April, June, and then one of our fall meetings could be meetings that could be targeted as being meetings that we don't hold. I did receive a suggestion from Director McMillan, rather than just saying we aren't going to meet in April and June, we could target those as meetings to be canceled. That way we have the meeting space already on people's calendars should we have to have an emergency meeting. Using the Greater Nevada Shaded Fuel Break as an example, we don't want to postpone the approval of that project specific analysis to May. So even though I said April's our down month, well, this year, April's an important month for us. So the recommendation would be a special meeting only for that item so we can get it passed and Nevada can start working on that awesome project. And then Director Rodoni had a great comment of that we would hate to overload meetings on either side of the skipped meetings simply so we can skip a meeting. So a more consistent pace of our meetings would be more desirable rather than having a super long meeting following the meeting that we are off. So that puts the burden on staff, which is not a terrible burden, to project a couple of meetings away out agenda levels and to know whether or not it would be appropriate to cancel an April, June, or a fall meeting. And with that, I'll take questions and comments.
Barbara?
Yeah, so I sit on the MCE board, as does Rachel, and a long time ago, we looked at this same type of thing and decided, just as Julie suggested, let's keep the meetings so everybody's got them scheduled, and then they're canceled if we don't need them. One other suggestion that we might want to consider as part of this is rather than having an educational session every meeting is maybe once a quarter, so that you know, that would, I know one of Dennis's goals, and I think many folks, is to keep the meetings as short as possible. And so I like this idea, and I think Julie's suggestion is the way to go, because trying to reschedule a meeting is really hard, but canceling is a lot easier. So thank you.
Agree.
Other comments?
I'm just thinking about budget planning and budget timing to approve budgets. You gonna put that into May? If we don't, because that has to be approved by the end of June, right?
Yeah, historically, we've been doing the budget. The ops committee has been working, and the finance committee have been meeting in April to do their work, and then we bring it to the board in May. So that's why we felt comfortable with the April drop of a board
Right.
meeting.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that that one's.
Good point. Thank you.
And maybe as we go through the calendar and thinking of if we're consolidating like some of the big, I mean, we don't know all of them because of the big projects, but budget is one that we know we have to have done. So we know where that was, and see if that works with the calendaring and changing, but I fully agree. We're at a point now that it seems like we can reduce the number of meetings.
Yeah, but the budget ramp up and then the closeout of the budget are hard dates that we should be sticking to.
Yep.
Julie?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today, there's an article about various companies eliminating meetings, internal meetings, and how much more productive how much more productivity they're getting for their companies and their employees. And so, and that was one of the consistent feedbacks that I received when I had coffee with each board member. So I think as we think about meetings, we need to be mindful of the staff's time as well as the 17 board members and multiply that by, it's probably 2 hours each meeting. That's almost a whole week's worth of work for a meeting. So that's a lot of time. And Mark, I'm wondering if you have like a table that you're keeping of all the milestones that need to be brought to the board over a year-long period. And that might help you manage when there's an opportunity to cancel a meeting.
We do have that table. That was the tool that I used to come up with those dates. And the primary driver is actually in the budget preparation process policy.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Mark, the environmental compliance component is critical too. As you noted, Novato is just one of 17 members, and we're going to continue to see environmental compliance. So it really comes down to when is board action required, Julie. I think that's what you're saying, and it might be helpful for the board just to pop that spreadsheet up for those things that require board action. And Mark, I know you have other, in this upcoming meeting, you've got some policy issues that require board action. So, we trust you and Ann to not convene a meeting if we don't need one. But I'm all for efficiency here. We really trust. I trust you both to tell us when we don't have to convene and make a decision. And if there's critical information that needs to come out, there's everything called that magic button called email, and you can send stuff out to all. But we do need to keep everyone informed and engaged and knowledgeable of what's going on. We need to keep people to comprehend some of the emerging issues, the strategic planning work that's coming out here, the strategic ad hoc. There are some critical informational stuff, some of which is not decision making. It's just informative, and so I trust you. Anyway, that's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, we're gonna go to public comment now, Mark.
Yes, and if anyone would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand in reactions or press *9. And we do have one comment, and stand by, Stephen. I'll get you on board. There we go. Stephen, you should be able to unmute yourself and
Yep, good, thanks. A couple of comments. One is that not only do you all have an awful lot of stuff for just MWPA, many of you already have other things going on. And I missed the very beginning of this, so I don't know whether you know it, but Barbara was up at her town council meeting to at least 1 o'clock this morning.
2:30.
I say at least because
It
I
was
was asleep.
Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and the other is a request that Mark, whenever you send out one of those notices to everybody, because you don't really need to have a meeting, could you post them somewhere on your website so that the public can know what sorts of things are going on?
absolutely. On our community calendar, we'll have notice that a meeting was canceled.
Great. And any notices, any updates of information that go out.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anyone else, Mark?
If there's anyone else, please raise your hand. And I am not seeing anyone else raising their hand.
I'm gonna bring it back to the committee for further discussion and feedback to staff. Barbara?
Just one thing, at MCE, when they cancel a meeting, they do it like not even a week before. And I think if you know you're not going to have a meeting several weeks before, notifying the public as well as the board members would be excellent. Thank you.
Totally agree.
So Mark, it looks like you got plenty of direction.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're gonna go back now to the committee report, item 7A. Citizen Oversight Committee. Welcome, Pat.
Thanks for having us here. The COC has no unanswered questions about items on the agenda for today. And we just wanted to let you know that we're hard at work working on the annual report for the 21-22 work that you have accomplished. And I had personally hoped that we would be nearing completion of that work by now, but we still seem to have a ways to go. But stay tuned. We are hard at work. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Any questions from members? All right. So take public comment now, Mark.
If anyone would like to comment on the COC report, please raise your hands in reactions or press *9. And we have no one raising their hand.
All right, come back to the committee. Any final comments? No action required?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Julie.
Pat, I'm hoping that given that this isn't your first report, that this report is a little more easy for people to do.
One would hope.
Oh dear. Okay.
I think we have growing pains just like the organization does. And one would think that after one time through, it would become much easier, but we have different questions, different things that we're looking at. So taking a little bit longer than expected.
Well, thank you for all that work.
And if I can add one thing that's generally related, and that is last year, the COC was balancing, releasing the report and waiting for our audit, and they ended up releasing the report and then having to comment on the audit. Just talking to our finance team yesterday, we should be receiving a draft copy of that audit, if not yesterday, today, somewhere around there. So the timing of our audit is much more convenient this year.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat. So we'll move on to item 9 now. Board of Directors agenda review for our February 16th meeting. Mark.
Yes, just a follow-up on the Form 700. It's also the year for us to update our conflict of interest code. It's every 2 years we need to update it. So Megan has been working to update that. And then we're just going to have a resolution about our informal bidding process in there, just to make sure that everyone's clear on the guidelines of the contractor and vendor list that we're creating, how the informal bidding list works. And then how member agencies may or may not be able to use it. For core projects, absolutely. For local projects, it's a little bit different for them, how they use it. And then I do have a question. If you would like to have the reduction of meetings to be part of the board agenda, or do you feel comfortable with the conversation at the exec committee level?
I think it should be a brief discussion so everyone's on the same page, and also the public is informed of the potential and how we would notice.
Will do.
And Mark, do you see that as just formulating some of our thoughts here and sort of make it as a proposal?
Will do.
This is being open-ended. Is that everyone okay with that? Great. All right. Anything else on the agenda, Mark, that you want to note?
Not me.
You, okay. And anything on your side?
Not for me either.
Okay. Any questions of board members? Bruce.
The other Mark. So Mark, I'm a little confused on item 6F about this recommendation to adopt a resolution delegating the executive officer the authority to award contracts. Is that not already embodied in policy that you have a $50,000 check writing authority, and then I guess I just need clarification on what is missing. And Megan, looks like you're holding her hand up. So you just a little context for this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. So when we adopted the purchasing and procurement policy, we included in there was the sort of authority for staff to deal with all informal procurement up to $200,000. But there's not an explicit delegation of authority to award the contract, even though it says staff will handle all of this. It doesn't say Mark signs off on the contract without board action on those items. And so we had done that for when we adopted very early on in MWPA's existence, even before that procurement policy, we adopted the CUPCA standards, which apply to public projects. But since adopting that, realized that vegetation management falls outside of CUPCA. It's not considered a public project under those construction definitions. And so we do have something authorizing an ordinance and resolution authorizing Mark to sign anything affiliated with a public project as defined by CUPCA. But I will feel much more comfortable if we have a resolution that explicitly gives him authority for anything awarded under an informal process. So I am hoping it will be fairly straightforward, because it's not giving him authority that wasn't contemplated before, as you indicated. It's just formalizing it.
Thank you for the clarification. That's really clear.
And
The other
what
item I have, and this is for us to looking back at our last meeting, I recall Mark and team that one of our board members asked for an update, and I think it was Paul Jeske. You can look at the recording, but he specifically asked for an update on, I think, the ingress and egress work that's being done, or what? I might have missed something. So I'm wondering, should we not be adding that specific request from your board at the last meeting as an agenda item?
we're just finding the right time to do it. We want to make sure that the analysis, we're most of the way through the county-wide analysis. And this would be the second update to the board on the evac ingress egress risk assessment. And so we're, like I said, we're working on when we get the right level analysis. We didn't want to come with partial analysis completed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just good. You're tracking that. That's critical. That's just, I want to make sure.
I would like to back up to one last thing about the resolution. I want to clarify that my authority to award a contract up to 200,000 is only for projects that have already been approved by the board.
Right. Yeah.
Just one follow-up to something that Bruce brought up and Mark responded to. because Paul Jeske did ask for that, maybe in your executive officer's report, Mark, you could mention that that's coming soon as we have that that data that you're waiting for.
Thank you for that. I
Great,
appreciate it.
great suggestion, Barbara. Thank you. That's my concern also, that everyone knows that we're tracking their input, and everyone's weighing in, leaning in, and that, you know, we're aware of and tracking that. So great suggestion.
Thanks for remembering, Stephen. All right, Bruce, I'm sorry. I have no
Okay,
brain.
I'm Mark, I'm Bruce, I'm Dennis. Can I be you?
You can be if you need to.
All right, so anything else on the agenda? All right, if not, we'll go to public comment on the February 16th agenda.
If anyone would like to make a comment on the upcoming board of directors agenda, please raise your hand in the reactions or press *9. And I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. And by the way, there's nobody in the chambers.
And thank you for that. We'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move to item 10, which is committee members' requests for future agenda items for executive committee. Seeing none?
If I may, Dennis, you know, the presentation that we got at our last board meeting from Willow Labs was a work of art. And I did ask for copies of the slides, Mark, by the way, and haven't received them. I'd like to see them, but I really feel that this and maybe we need to wait for the strategic ad hoc to get together and kind of look at, but strategic ad hoc is kind of about shifting from the trajectory we were on. That presentation it was so rich in content and so meaningful to this agency, to this Joint Powers Authority. And I made the comment that it had huge implications for the how we're going to, you know, systems that we're going to set up in place to communicate exactly the difference that we're making, and systems in place for us to, you know, when the wildfire mitigation specialists to knock on doors to give, not only to give a report, but then to give a prioritized list of investments that you should make. I just feel that we didn't get the full dose and context and implications of that product. And so I just feel we need to more. I need more. I need more clarity on what's going on. I need more as far as and this is not strategic ad hoc business. This is work in progress again. I really feel that, Mark, we need to hear from Willow Labs again. And you, Mark, you the answer to me at our last meeting was when I said that so rich and so many implications and things that we're going to be doing, you know, and this is state of the art, by the way. This is beyond belief from my perspective. But you said we have all that, we just didn't have time to present it. So Mark, I think we need another presentation from Willow Labs about the products, the implications, products and implications for MWPA.
And there's two phases of the project that Willow Labs is working on. There's the on residential or on parcel work, but then we've also provided them the data for our shaded fuel break work and for our evacuation route work. And so that was going to be phase 2 of the presentation. And this could be an hour-long plus presentation if we put it all together. I will note that Willow Labs was asked to present at the WIRES conference. It's a conference down in San Diego next week that much of the MWPA staff is going to be attending remotely. We're setting up a little watch party here at the office so we can attend the sessions together. But yeah, Scott's been asked to present, and then he asked our permission to present what he's been doing with us. So we said yes.
So I'm not interested in an hour-long presentation. What I'm interested in is basically the findings and the implications of the analytical work they did. It was frankly, it was a little bit too long. in its last presentation was contextual, and we have this data and blank, and here's this scatter shot diagram, and but he didn't get down to, let's look at 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum of findings and implications for products that we're going to develop and processes and approaches that we're going to take. That's what I'm looking for, Mark.
Yes, and that will need to come after we do our work with the strategic ad hoc.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for correcting.
I just wanted to add, I would love those slides also. And I think that the information has big implications for fire safe Marin as well as Marin master gardeners. Because those groups are, providing the priorities to various people as well. So I'm sure they're going to be included, but we just need to make sure that they are.
And we will get those slides actually up onto the website as part of the archive for that agenda.
Awesome. That's great.
Mark, you just let me know when that happens, because I'm not just going to randomly check the website.
Yep.
Barbara, did you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to ask that it go on the agenda archive. So I'm good to go.
Thank you. Okay, anything else in future meeting? If not, I think we can adjourn. Barbara, I think I got you out of here in an hour, so.
You're perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, see you all.
Thank
on the
you.
14th.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.